Hello beautiful perception trainers people, and welcome back to another video. So in this video I'm going to be doing part 2 of my health history life story. So if you haven't already done so, please go back and watch part 1 if you want to know my story. That's that. And so basically, yeah, I got you all the way up to 18 when I found the raw foods diet. And so yes, like I said, at that point I was just, again, I really feel like at 18, I was just done. So I decided I was going to graduate from high school 6 months early. I wanted to leave. I knew, again, instinctively in my heart, there was just like, this life wasn't going to work for me, and I wasn't going to be able to fit myself into normal life. And this had become, like I said, quite apparent to me as I had been growing up and like doing all these things with my diet and doing all these things to try to change and get better and healthier. And I was genuinely making progress. From the time I was 14 to the time I was 18, I made a lot of progress in my health. And part of the reason that I didn't actually see that was because I didn't really know how sick I was until like just now, like looking back, understanding where I actually was at that point, at grade 8. I had made quite a bit of progress. But I didn't see that. And second thing is, of course, there was the weight thing that was tied into it, and the body image obsession, and the thinking that I would be loved if I was thin. Not just because I thought that if I was thin I'd be loved. It was because I really had this idea in my head that if I could fix my body, I would fix my emotions, I would fix my personality, and I would fix all these things that were wrong with me, that was making the world a worse place. So here's what we really need to understand about the psychology that I had. That it wasn't just that people didn't like me and that I didn't fit in, that was bothering me about how I was. It was that I wanted to make this world a better place. I felt like it was my job to make this world a better place. And because I had sickness, because I had negative emotions, because I made everyone around me uncomfortable. I would always point out the thing that no one wanted to talk about. I would always air the dirty, like that was my, again, the filter blown that I had, is that I understand that I have now, is I can walk into a room and I will know exactly what's like wrong or going on with everybody in the room. I know the thing that they're ashamed of. I know the stories they're telling themselves. I know their false beliefs. I know all of this stuff about everybody, and I would just blurt it out. I would just say it. I would have a very strong emotional reaction to the situation that I was in. Like I just could not sit there and be okay at church or all this stuff where everyone was just being a victim and like all this stuff. So that was the thing that really people didn't like about me, is that being around me means that thing that you don't want to talk about, that thing you're trying to hide, that thing that is what's causing you all of your pain that you're coping with right now, and that you think is wrong with you, or that thing you don't want to talk about, that thing you don't want to look at, whatever that is, that's going to be the thing that I talk about. That's going to be the thing that I bring up. And like I said, growing up, I didn't realize that I was doing that. And so, like, especially with my mom, like, I was the antithesis of everything she wanted me to be. I was sick, not perfect. I had I couldn't, the family ethos was don't talk about it. She always said to me, it's more important to look good than to feel good. And she meant that, right? So the message was, don't make me look bad. Just don't make me look bad. So, like I say, now I can kind of, looking back, understand what was going on here. That she didn't want me to be sick and she didn't want me to be shitty because that made her look bad. But she also didn't want me to be special. She didn't want me to be great because that made her look bad too, by comparison. So anytime I did anything spectacular, right, so I would get good grades, I was in every play, I was in every dance recital, like I was really good too. Like I don't know, like I had skill and I had gifts. There was always this sense that I was outshining her, and she wasn't actually proud of me, and she didn't like that I was getting that much attention and all this stuff. So again, starting in high school, I started to just sabotage myself. I would be right, so in grade 10, I auditioned for the main stage drama performance in my high school. And it was basically like really, really, really rare for anyone in grade 10 to get into the main stage. It was even rare for someone in grade 11 to get into the main stage because, of course, they're going to reserve the main stage spots for the grade 12 students who are going to be graduating. And so in grade 10, I auditioned and I got into the main stage. And then in grade 11, I just didn't audition because I had so much shame around being special and being pointed out as being special. And so the problem was that I did keep getting pointed out as being special. All through growing up, my teachers always took a liking to me. I always became best friends with my teachers. Adults always took to me outside of my family. And so this was another thing too, is like, I know that my mom really wanted to pin on me that I was the problem child and that the problems in our family were because of me. But she couldn't, because all my teachers and all my classmates all my teachers and my employers and the people that I babysat for or whatever, they all just thought I was great. They all just thought I was like this perfect, shiny, amazing kid. And I really was. Like, I was a high achiever. I was a really high achiever. I had a job. I was, like I said, every extracurricular performance, I was in all the drama performances, all the dance performances, did really, really well in school, had a job, saved my own money. I was taking care of my own health. Like, I was trying so hard to be an adult. And every time that I leveled up in my own life, thinking, okay, this is going to make her approve of me because, look, I need her less, I'm doing more, all of this, it would make me special, and then that wasn't good either. So that's basically where I got to by the time I was in high school. It was just like, I'm fucked if I do, I'm fucked if I don't. I don't know how to not say the thing that everyone doesn't want to talk about. I'm special and my mom hates that. I'm sick and my mom hates that. I'm still kind of chubby and my mom hates that. But losing weight, she doesn't like that either. It was just like this big mess. And so I just kind of had it in my head that I was going to leave because I couldn't really make this life work. Like, I just had this really deep sense of knowing that I needed to leave. So my parents said, you're too young. We're not going to let you just like get on an airplane and go somewhere by yourself. You have to go somewhere. So I decided I was going to go to this Bible school in New Zealand. And basically what happened while I was there. So I graduated 6 months early. And like I said, up until then, I had been doing the gourmet raw foods thing. And that had been really working. And so, like, here's the other thing, that I didn't lose any weight going on the raw foods diet. For 6 months, I was like 130 pounds, like just how I had been all through high school. And my stomach aches didn't really get that much better. Like, they sort of improved, but like I say, there was like this thing that had clicked inside of me that was like, no, this is it. You're going to be fine now. You found it. You're going to be fine. And so even though nothing on the outside really changed, on the inside, I knew I was okay. And so much of my food drama stopped. I even stopped really caring that I didn't lose weight. Like, I started to be able to, I was okay with the weight that I was at all of a sudden after hating it so much for all of those years. It was just like this very weird transition that happened where, like I said, all this stuff that I thought was wrong with me, I was like, it's going to be okay. Like, I just really felt like things were going to be okay. And at the same time, I had pinned all these hopes on this trip to New Zealand. So I decided I was going to New Zealand to this Bible school. And I just really thought, like, and I'm going to find my people there. Like, I'm going to find the other kids that love God and that love people and that just really want to make this world a better place. And I'm going to become this missionary, and we're going to, like, change the world. And, like, I'm going to find the other people who care about other people. And I just really thought I was going to, like, find friends for the first time. And I just, like, had all these hopes that, like, I was going to find people like me and I wasn't going to be so weird and everything was going to be okay. And they had told me that my raw foods diet was going to be fine, that they could facilitate that before I left. So that's what happened. So I graduate. I turned 18 on January 30th and got on a plane February 2nd to fly to New Zealand. And basically, I showed up at my DTS in New Zealand. Number one, the other people in my DTS were either way older than me, so most of them were in their adulthood and totally there for really weird reasons. And the two girls that were my age, were just normal teenager girls. Like literally they cared about makeup and their boyfriends and their looks and their clothes. And I was like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And then the second thing was they said the staff had all turned over between my correspondence with the school and my arriving there. So none of them knew that I was on a raw foods diet. And the system, the way that it was set up was that it was a community living situation. So we all lived in like a community center together. And the chef was there to essentially make meals for everybody. So she was going to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for everybody. And she was like, there's no way I'm making you your own thing. And so what we struck a deal, like I basically just said, like, look, I'm not going to go back to eating church food, right? Like I can't start eating meat and dairy and pasta and all of these things, because I knew, again, like I was like, I haven't eaten these foods in like 4 years. Like my body will just deteriorate. I can't do it. So we struck this deal that she would buy me $30 worth of fruits and vegetables at the grocery store with the tuition, the part of the tuition that was for food. She was going to buy me food, and then she gave me $20 back every week to buy my own food, and I would like fill in the gaps. So, but again, remember that I was coming from a gourmet raw foods diet. So I was making like granolas and like nut cheeses, and like everything was like nuts and seeds, and it was a very, very heavy raw foods diet. To all of a sudden, I'm in New Zealand, I don't have access to a kitchen, I don't have enough money to buy like oils and nuts and seeds and all this stuff. So all of a sudden, I'm thrust into this like super clean, only fruits and vegetables diet. Okay, so that was a bit of a huge issue, right? That I now look back on that and I understand that that really was bad for my body. Just going so far from this gourmet raw foods diet to this super clean diet overnight just wreaked havoc on my body. It was not a good thing. And then I'm having this like complete crisis that I thought I was going to find my people. I thought I was going to find where I fit. I thought I was going to find all this stuff. And instead, everything's the same there, but worse, right? Like I'm having emotional, I was just like crying and sad and like just felt like the world was crashing down around me. That death feeling that I had had for my whole life all came back, and I was just like, this is horrible, like this is not going to be okay. And then so like just feeling so alone, and again, like I was like, okay, right? I think what happened there was I realized that I was a freak and that my people didn't exist. This was the last hope I had, that I was going to find people like me. And I think in that time, that dream just died. I just was like, okay, I'm a freak. I'm so messed up. I can't eat like normal. I can't act like normal. I can't care about what these young girls care about. Like I don't have what they have. I'm so alone. I'm such a weirdo. That's it. I don't fit in. I'm never going to fit in. I'm never going to be included. That's it. And so that was kind of happening. And then halfway through the DTS, the leader of the school found out that I had been eating a raw foods diet. And he basically said, like, look, your diet is from Satan. It's going to make it so that you can't be in fellowship with anybody. You won't be able to be a missionary like this. You cannot be this way. You need to start eating normal like everybody else. And what actually happened for me in that moment, when he looked at me and said, your diet is from Satan and it's going to make it so that you can't ever help anybody, that was the nail in the coffin. That was like, okay, this thing that is fundamentally a part of who I am, right? My body is broken. I can't eat normal food like everyone else. If I try and eat normal food like everyone else, I get sick. I end up like I get sick, and this diet is the only way that I've been able to actually like live and do stuff. But even more than that, it just really represented to me that this way that I was fundamentally as a human being caused harm. And that this dream that I had that I was going to become this benevolent person that made this world a better place, I feel like he basically was saying to me, like, that's not going to happen, because who and what you are fundamentally, right? Like, so like the physical stuff was just a representation of how I felt about myself as a person, right? That like who and what I was fundamentally was bad. And not only was it bad, it was causing pain. And there was no hope that I was ever going to be someone who had a positive impact on this world because of who I was, right? Because in order for me to be normal, to live like a normal person, was to kill myself. But he was saying that what you're having to do to make it so that you can function causes pain. So who and what you are fundamentally causes pain. And that is when I think my soul broke. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, I can't eat normal. I'm not going to eat normal. He made me eat a piece of cake in front of everyone to prove that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And instead of that, I was just like, okay, so what I did for the rest of the DTS was stop eating breakfast. I would rush to the dinner hall at lunch every day to get a banana, an apple, and an orange, and some spinach, and that's what I ate every day because they would always serve some fresh fruit at lunch, and then they would serve fresh fruit and vegetables at dinner, and that's what I ate for the rest of the time. So in that time, I think I was kind of just giving up. Like I didn't really know what else to do. And I didn't think to ask my parents for money for food because I thought they would definitely say no. I didn't have access to my own bank accounts because I didn't have, like, my debit card didn't work over in New Zealand. So it was just like, this is just what you have to do. You're just going to have to, like, figure it out. And so I lost like 10 pounds, came home thinner. And the other thing was that what happened from eating that super clean diet is I stopped having stomach aches. I went for 3 months straight without having a stomach ache, and my acne cleared up. And so I lost 10 pounds. And I was like, okay, I have to keep doing this. So when I got home, I didn't have school anymore. I didn't have anything to distract me. I was just back in my parents' house. And I was just completely lost. And also, like I said, just feeling like the truth about me had finally been revealed. I was terrible. Who and what I was not good. And the fact that I was sick was my fault. The fact that I was so emotional was my fault. I couldn't be a good missionary. No one was ever going to like me. I was just a freak, and I was causing the world's pain. So along with that, so when I got home, I tried to go back to the gourmet raw foods diet. And I was like so excited to get back into the kitchen, and I just thought that'll be really great. But now, when I tried to eat the gourmet raw food, my stomach would just shut down. It would just completely atrophy. And that had never happened to me before. So I got to this place where I was like trying to go back to eating how I was eating before, but my body couldn't do it anymore. Like, it was so weak at this point from the toxic detox, essentially, that I had put it through in New Zealand, that I was just like trying to go back to my old food, but I couldn't do it. Like, my digestion just wouldn't do it. And so, like I said, like, it would just sit in my stomach, and I would just writhe in pain for like hours because I couldn't digest anything. So I went back to eating essentially how I was eating in New Zealand, and did that for the rest of the year. And so, like, this is basically where people say, like, I was in my anorexia phase. And again, I'm not going to say that I didn't have anorexia, because, like, I definitely did. I was obsessed with my weight, obsessed with food. I wanted all this stuff. But it wasn't like this pure, clean case of just like, I thought I wanted to lose weight so that I'd be like fit in. I was trying to get rid of what was bad about me, right? Like, it was, and at the same time, again, I still was holding out hope at this point that maybe if I just fixed my body, there would be something good about me. And that was basically all I had. It was like my personality was broken, my emotions were broken, everything about me was awful. And I just thought, maybe if I can fix my body, I won't be such a burden on humanity. Because that's what I felt about myself. That it was just like, this is the one thing that I may be able to do something about that will make it so that I'm not just a horrible drain on society and making everyone's around me's life worse. So for that year of right after I got back from New Zealand and then the year and a bit until I was diagnosed, I wasn't like a normal anorexic. Like I wasn't necessarily just like trying to eat as few calories as possible and all this stuff. Like I actually did my first nutrition diploma while I was sick and was taking all of that information and trying to apply it to what I felt intuitively about raw foods and all this stuff. So like the caloric restriction, I would have like hour-long conversations with my dad about like how that's the only studies we have for longevity. And I was like, and like I said, everything that I ate was like perfect, pure, raw foods. Like I wasn't eating like low-calorie yogurts or like protein bars or like pre-packaged foods so that you know exactly how many calories you're getting. Like I wasn't doing that at all. Like I would not let anything that wasn't perfect and pristine cross my lips. I started intermittent fasting during this time, literally because I read your digestion is supposed to happen between 12 and 8, so I just stopped eating breakfast like I did in New Zealand. And then, so like a lot of these things too that I'm going to tell you about later that like I've come to that have actually healed my body, I came to all on my own, and we'll get to that later. But anyways, essentially my anorexia is what most people in the cleansing world are recommending that you do nowadays. And that's part of why I've started the mystery school that I'm leading and all this stuff, because my version of my eating disorder is kind of what people in the health world are like recommending right now as like a cleansing diet. And that's what's sort of horrifying to me, is that what I was doing to try to heal myself and what felt intuitively like maybe this was going to heal me, and like I said, my stomach ache stopped happening and all these things, and anytime I would eat anything other than my little very restrictive, perfect fruitarian raw foods diet, I would get a stomach ache. So again, like saying in my head, like, see, it's the food that's making me sick, and it's the food that's making me gain weight, and it's the food that's making me puffy, and it's the food so that this clean diet is the right thing. And so again, I was happy that I was losing weight, and definitely that was a big part of it, and I thought that, but I was trying to get rid of myself. Like I was trying to fix myself. I was trying to purify myself. I was trying to clean myself. I was trying to get rid of all this stuff about me that was broken. And that feeling of lightness that I got when I lost weight was an addiction, because it was a facsimile for what I was really looking for. Okay, so we're going to get into this as we go along. So that whole year, that's what was happening. I was essentially living the cleansing lifestyle to the nth degree. And that's what it looks like when you really do it. I lost a whole bunch of weight, and then eventually my mom made me go to a triage center. They did tests on me, and they came back and said, look, you're in bad state, but in order to get referred to an eating disorder clinic, you had to get a general practitioner. So we got ourselves a family doctor. He took my results, sent them to the eating disorder clinic, and they said, don't expect to hear from them for at least 6 months because you're 19 years old, and they prioritize children. And then what ended up happening was the eating disorder clinic called me like 2 weeks later, and they were like, okay, we want you to come in. How soon can you come in? And the reason they did that was because my heart and my liver and my kidneys were all shutting down. So again, I just want to make this clear. I was living a cleansing lifestyle. Yes, I was under eating, but there are people out there who are doing fasts and things that are even more extreme than what I was doing, and are saying that these things are healing things. And that's what I was doing, like less extreme than what I'm seeing out there. And it got me to this, and I, again, was pretty convinced that it was healing me because I was feeling better. So this is the other thing that I really want to make clear, is during my anorexia, I didn't know that I was getting sicker because it was the first time in my life I didn't have stomach aches. It was the first time in my life I wasn't getting lung infections. Like, I actually felt better as anorexic, the way that I was doing it, which was just the cleansing lifestyle to the nth degree, way too far. I felt better doing that than I had ever felt in my life. I had no idea I was making myself sick. I didn't even believe the doctors when they were telling me that I was like hurting myself, because I was like, there's no way that's true, because I feel good for the first time. Like, I actually felt good. And that is something that I think is also just like, can be very confusing when you like hear my story the way that it is for me, is that, yeah, I felt good. And so I now, again, I understand what was going on there now, and I'll tell you about it later, but that was what was going on. My anorexia wasn't the same as a normal person's anorexia. I wasn't just eating as little as possible to lose weight. I was trying to make myself a good person by healing my body, and I genuinely thought I was healing my body. And like I said, like, I hadn't read Earhart, I didn't know any other cleansers. I got to all of these things, like this pure fruits and vegetables diet with intermittent fasting and light workouts. Like, I wasn't even like working out like crazy or anything like that. I just did a walk, and everything was light and gentle, and all my inflammation was coming down, and like my joints stopped hurting and all these things. And I came to it all on my own. I didn't read any of this stuff. Like I said, now I'm seeing people teaching it, but back then, the only raw food people on the internet were 30 bananas a day, and I was definitely not going to be eating like 4,000 bananas. Like, that didn't seem like a good thing for me. So that's how I got there. So I get diagnosed. They tell me, look, you're really sick, and you need to change, and this isn't good. They told me if I was 17, I wouldn't have had a choice. They would have checked me into the inpatient program right then and there. And I just also want to make this clear that I was going to all these appointments by myself. No one came with me. My parents weren't taking care of me. My mom wasn't trying. She had taken me to the triage center. Then after that, it was my responsibility. So I told them I didn't want to be in the inpatient program because they told me they couldn't support a vegan diet, and I knew that I was not going to be able to eat dairy, and I wasn't going to be able to eat meat. So I said, no, I'll do this on my own. And for the first couple of weeks, I was like, I'm fine. And then I was out for a walk one day, and I think I've told this story before. I was out for a walk, and I basically heard this voice in my head say, okay, if you keep going how you're going, you're going to die. And that's just how it is. And there was no fear. There was no shame. There was no blame. It wasn't like you're doing something wrong. There was no judgment. It was just like these are the facts. And then, and it said, but if you decide to get better, you'll have a really cool life. And at the same time, it felt in my body like when you're playing a video game and you get all the way to the boss level and then you die and you have to start all the way over again. That's what it felt like. So again, remembering I'm Christian at this point. I don't believe in reincarnation. I thought you just go to heaven after you died. But in that moment, I very deeply understood that if I let myself die, I was just going to have to come back and do this all again. And I was like, holy fucking shit, no way. Like, life is way too painful. This has been way too hard. No fucking way. I'm going to die and start again. So I literally went home that day and started my weight recovery. So what I did was I just put myself, I looked up the vegan food pyramid, and I put myself on the vegan food pyramid diet for 6 months, and I essentially gained 50 pounds in three months, and all of my symptoms came back. So my digestion was a disaster, worst it had ever been. All my stomach aches came back. I got really inflamed, really puffy, really swollen. I got cellulite on my stomach. I got cellulite on my butt, like everywhere. Everything fell apart. Like, all my health just tanked. And they were monitoring me. I was going to a nursing clinic every 2 weeks. And they actually sent me to the emergency room a couple of times because they were afraid that my heart was going to stop because I was gaining weight so fast that obviously so much of it was water weight. And they were afraid that it was going to throw off my electrolytes and that I was going to have a heart attack. So that was what was going on there. So for the next 6 months, I just let myself gain weight. I went all the way back up to 130 pounds, and it was just awful. It was awful. It was just so awful. And I just felt awful. Everything felt awful. My body felt awful. All my pain came back. All my symptoms came back. Everything. And at the same time, I remember sitting there and having this very clear vision and understanding that all of my pain of what I had been running away from, essentially what I had thought I had been fixing through my cleansing lifestyle, my anorexia, was all still there. And now I had made my health worse. And I remember just feeling like, oh my God, Like, I've done everything I know to do, and none of it's better, and I actually made it worse. And that was like really, really, really overwhelming, obviously. And so, and then again, during this time, my mom never helped me cook. No one monitored me eating. No one kept tabs on me. And she would like make comments about my weight and about what I was eating. And like I said, like, there was sabotage going on the entire time. And it was just awful. So then in 2009, so the next couple of years are all kind of the same shit, same shit, different day. I decided, so I moved away from home. I went back on the raw foods diet, but the thing was, the clean raw foods diet that I had done in New Zealand and all through my anorexia never worked again. So I stayed at the upper end of my weight range, no matter how few calories I ate, no matter what was happening. My body didn't shift again after that. And I was swollen, I was inflamed, and my colon was swollen and inflamed in the worst state it had ever been. At this point, I started to get like chronic constipation and all this stuff. And over the years, my health just continued to decline. And no matter how hard I tried, like I said, to get back to that perfect, pure, clean diet, I couldn't do it. My body would, so it's kind of like this very messy situation where all of my false beliefs about myself and negative beliefs about myself and that I'm a piece of shit, I'm the worst thing ever, are all still there. So as I'm growing up, I kept thinking, no, okay, I can do something to be a good person. And I really wanted to do stuff. So I got my nutrition diploma, got my yoga teacher training, did my life coaching. I was doing all these things to try and collect this roster of skills that I thought maybe I could help the world with. I was letting go of Christianity, finding my spirituality in a new way, getting into New Age stuff in Vancouver at the time, and it was all very like getting into psychics and all these things, and all that stuff was happening. And then at the same time, trying to get back on the raw foods diet. So staying on the raw foods diet, not really craving cooked food or anything like that. But I would, again, I was so overstressed, so overtaxed, hated myself so much, hated my body, hated my life. And at this point, I was really good at scapegoating all my self-hate onto my body, right? So really, I hated my personality. I hated my emotions. I hated that I couldn't just look good. I hated that I was special and that I had intuitive senses and that I was good at things. I hated that I wasn't good at things. Like literally anything that my mom hated about me, which was everything, I hated about myself. And so I definitely had learned how to scapegoat it onto my body at that point. I had learned how to scapegoat it onto food. If I could just get my diet right, I wouldn't feel this way, right? Like, and that was kind of that was my escape. So my addiction to this lightness, my addiction to this food drama, my addiction to all this, that was how I was making myself feel like I was going to be a good person one day. That if I could just get this body thing under control, right? If I could just get my diet under control, if I could just get my weight back down, if I could just fix all the problems with my body that are wrong with my body, I'm going to be good. And also, like, look, I'm doing all these other things. Like, I'm taking these courses. I'm working 2 or 3 jobs to support myself. I never asked my parents for money ever. So we moved to Vancouver. I was working minimum wage jobs, paying my way through school, and having like $50 a week left over for food. And that was just what I did. I just went to the produce bins at Granville Island Market, and they always had like discount fruit and discount produce, and I just would buy all that stuff. I was cooking for my boyfriend at the time, doing all the chores, like just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Just constantly in motion, constantly busy to just distract myself from how much I hated myself, and dieting to try to fix myself. And over these next 4 years, like I said, my health just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So my chronic lung infections turned into, again, like I started getting these infections every winter, and now I would just work through it. All my stomach aches were coming back, but getting worse and worse and worse. And so like literally the list of foods that I was able to digest was getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And I was telling myself, this is because I'm getting more and more sensitive because I'm healing and I'm cleansing and I'm thinking I'm doing all this cleansing and I'm on this raw foods diet, but it wasn't working. And like I say, I started to become sensitive to fruits, and then I couldn't digest cucumbers, and I couldn't digest this, and I couldn't digest that. And my digestion was just getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And I would blame it on, because every weekend I would cook for my boyfriend and my sister. And so I would make them hummus and I would make them raw foods desserts. And then I would pick at the raw food dessert. And I would chop up all this parsley and put it in the hummus and then pick the parsley out. So I wasn't like binging on cooked foods or anything like this. And it really wasn't even a binge. Like I think I probably ate like 300 or 400 calories a day of this food, like on the picking day, 1 or 2 days a week. But this trance thing of just like picking at food was like my one escape, because I wouldn't allow myself any pleasure. I wouldn't allow myself to do anything fun. I was either working or I was picking at food or I was sleeping. And at the same time, I was like working out like crazy and my body was just getting more and more inflamed. And so again, and so I'm blaming all my symptoms and my worsening digestion and all this stuff on the weekends where I'm picking at dates and raisins and parsley and saying that's the reason why everything's going to shit, because if I could just stick to this pure fruit thing, I would be fine. And so like, right, all of this was going on. And I got to this point where one day I was eating a meal of papayas and my digestion was just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And at this point I was trying the 30 bananas a day thing. So I had very much increased my caloric intake because my sister had basically caught on to the fact that like I was still trying to starve myself. And essentially trying to get back to that cleansing lifestyle I had been living while I was anorexic and in New Zealand. And she's like, look, like you can't do this. Like this isn't going to work. You can't go back to what you were doing when you were anorexic. And there was a part of me that wanted to go back to that just because like that had been the best I had ever felt. But she was like, you can't do that. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to go on the freely diet and I'm going to eat 2,500 calories and all this stuff of just fruit. So I did that for like a week or two. And then one day no, it must have been even longer than that. Like I tried really hard for a while to like eat a substantial amount of calories and like work out. And I just really thought I was going to get fit and healthy and like my metabolism was broken and all this stuff. And so one day I'm eating this meal of papayas and I'm halfway through and my stomach just completely, I just like spazzed. And then it was like, I could feel that nothing was going to move. And it was like my entire digestive system from my colon to my stomach was full. And like nothing had moved over the last couple of days, and and it was just like an atrophy situation. So the next day I went for a colonic and literally like 5 days of food came out of me. Like it was unbelievable. And I was just like, okay, like I'm fucked. Like I don't even know what to do at this point. I am doing everything that I know to do. I can't control myself. I've tried everything I know to try and it's not working. I'm broken. So yeah, I was just like, I literally don't know what to do at this point. And I think I also want to mention that, right, all throughout those years, I had still been going to practitioners. I had still been trying to do what I could do to heal my body. And I was just so inflamed and so swollen and in so much pain. I was starting to get urinary tract infections. Like I said, my colon was shutting down worse than it ever had before. I would get a lung infection every year. My joints, like I said, were getting inflamed. I went to the doctor and they told me that I had inflammation in my chest, all my joints. My thyroid was going down. I still had no period. They couldn't figure that out. I was in a terrible place. And so this is when we went to Thailand for the first time. And I have had the kind of revelation that I talk about in the perception diet, where, right, it wasn't just in the context of like I was 130 pounds in Thailand, like I was when I was in grade 8 and I was sick. It was like I knew inside that physically on every level, nothing had healed since, as in I was right back to where I was on the couch in grade 8 dying. And I just thought to myself, like, okay, right, I have hated myself and tried to fix myself and looked at myself as though I was broken and done everything that I know to do. I've done every diet, I've done every healing modality, I've done every spiritual quest you can do. Like I felt like I was at the end of it, and I was like, maybe I'm just never gonna figure this out. And maybe I'm just never going to be good. And maybe I'm just never going to be healthy. And in that moment, I was like, okay, like I said, the revelation was really, I'm gonna have to figure out how to like myself in the broken state that I'm in. And I don't know why I realized that, because with the amount of self-hate that I had and the amount of what I thought was going to make me a good person, which was to save the world, and with the amount of just feeling like who I was inherently and what I was inherently was bad and was causing pain and making people hate me and making me cause the pain of the world and making it so that I couldn't fix it, I don't know how I decided that I was going to have to like myself, but that's basically that was the turning point. So I've told this story 100 million times, right? I had that revelation. I decided I was going to get on my body's side, and just to start to believe that it wasn't against me and it wasn't trying to hurt me, that it was trying to help me, and that I could figure this out. And so I let go of believing that I had the answer already. So like that was the kind of like the first big turning point in my life, is learning how to be in a state where you know you don't have the answer. Everything that I had tried hadn't worked. I knew, right? And that was the thing too. It's like I was like everyone else, where I could delude myself that what I was doing was working if I could just stick to it. And it was always just because I fell off of it or something would happen or whatever, like my diet, that I was getting worse. And so I had the answer. It's just I wasn't able to apply it right. And I finally, in that moment, saw like, I don't have the answer. I've tried, I've applied it, I've done, because that was the revelation, right? I had been doing it perfect while I was anorexic, and it made me sicker. So clearly, that wasn't the answer. I thought I had the answer. I was convincing myself that what I was doing was the answer, that pure, clean, raw foods diet was the answer. It was going to heal me, and look, it sort of worked while I was anorexic, but then I finally was able to say, like, no, it didn't. That made you sicker. All these things that you've done to fix your personality and get rid of your emotions and all this stuff never worked. It's not that you can't stick to it. It's not that the program is working and you're just not working it properly. It was that the program doesn't work. You don't have the answer. But at the same time, I didn't go into, so therefore there is no answer. I was like, okay, I just don't have it. I just don't know what it is right now. But I opened myself to learning about what it is. Okay, so that is the moment that my life changed forever. So coming home from Thailand that first time, I did all the tools in the perception diet. I started to imagine myself healthy, which really, right, so in my ideal body, I was healthy. I wasn't inflamed. I wasn't broken. And what I was actually doing there was connecting to my true self. Okay, that's what I really want to make clear. Is that in that ideal body meditation was not about getting my ideal body, because I had let go of the idea that I was ever going to have my ideal body. Okay, I really want to make that clear. I was not trying to get my ideal body. I did not think that was possible. I thought my one hope is to learn to love the body that I'm in right now. And so, but in order to access this feeling of self-love, so I remember watching a Teal Swan video, and she said, you need to just ask yourself, what would someone who loved themselves do? And I remember thinking, like, what kind of bullshit advice is that? Like, if I knew what someone who loved themselves would do, I would not be in this situation that I'm in. Like, I have no idea what someone who would love themselves would do. So that was 20 steps too far for me. What I had to do was, like, imagine that I was perfect. Imagine that I was this thing that I've always been trying to get to. And then from that place of feeling like I was there, right? How am I going to act? How am I going to behave? That was the point, right? Looking in the mirror, saying nice things about myself wasn't to change my body. It was to say, I need to start saying nice things about myself. I can't keep expecting myself to like me if every time I look in the mirror, I hate the fuck out of myself. That's not going to work. And then again, so it started to behave like I didn't have to fix myself. So that was really what it was. It was switching from what do I do to fix this broken thing that I am, to what do I do if I didn't believe there was something about me that needed to be fixed, that I was just good enough. How would I live my life if I believed I was just good enough? And that was the point of it. So connecting with that feeling of good enough, to eventually I didn't need to imagine the ideal body anymore to feel like I was good enough. And then at the same time, the questioning my beliefs. So this is where I started to say, okay, it feels really shitty to look in the mirror and think you're fat, and that feels terrible. So what I started to say was like, why does it feel so terrible to look in the mirror and see 130 pounds, stretch marks, and cellulite? Why does that feel so bad, right? Is there something actually inherently negative about this? Or am I telling myself stories about this that make it feel so bad? And that's when I started to realize that, like, I'm connecting having cellulite and all this stuff with people not liking me and not being accepted and being alone and causing pain. And then I was like, okay, but when I was thin, I didn't have cellulite, I didn't have all these things, and nothing was better. So maybe this correlation that I'm making, I'm a terrible person because of my body, isn't true. Because even when I had a totally different body, I still felt this way about myself. So again, I'm starting to say, like, wow, there's all this perceptual shit that's just wrong. Like, how I'm seeing the world is wrong. How I'm treating myself is wrong. And not wrong in the sense like you're stupid, but wrong in the sense of like, of course you think that, right? And so that was the initial phases. And so after practicing this stuff for like 6 or 7 months, again, nothing had changed about my body. I had changed my diet quite a bit in the sense that I had included a whole bunch of foods that were still raw and still all this, like, but we're not on this pure, pristine diet. And it was literally just about every single day, if I was already perfect, what am I going to eat? If I'm not trying to change my body, I accept my body for exactly how it is right here, right now, what do I want? And that started to be the leading force for deciding what I was going to eat. And so I changed my diet quite a bit. And so then, okay, so now over the next 4 years, since then, everything in my life has changed, okay? So not just my diet, not just my eating, not just how I think or my perception. Literally, I have come face to face with all of, to my knowledge at this point, my false beliefs about myself and about the world and about heaven and about getting to this ideal place and about what makes someone worthy and all this stuff. I have, and at the same time, the amount of stuff that I have had to do to get to where I am today. Okay, so here's something that I want to make very clear. After that 7 months, nothing had changed about my body. I was still at the upper end of my weight range, 130 pounds. But again, I had reconnected to that feeling of I was going to be okay. And I literally was totally fine with never losing weight from that point. I got to a point where I was like, okay, if I stay puffy and swollen like this for the rest of my life, that's fine. Because, again, the actual shift that had taken place was I was starting to actually listen to my body to the point where I could figure out where I actually was at physically, not this philosophical what would be perfect diet or any of these things that I thought was the solution, but where I actually was at mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And I was empowering myself to take one step forward at a time. Okay, so really what happened here was I came back to where my body actually was, which was eating a lot of heavier foods and all these foods that I had made a drama about and said, these are the things that make me sick and blah, 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 blah. And I realized that was not true. My body was getting weaker and weaker and weaker trying to eat this pure fruit diet. That was the diet that was killing me. Even though it was philosophically cleaner than the diet that I went on or, you know, that I was following after this revelation, these dirty foods actually started to heal me. Okay, so that's like the first key, is that I realized that perfection has nothing to do with it. The only way to heal is to be where you are and to take one step forward from where you're actually at. And I learned that physically, and then I learned that mentally, emotionally, spiritually as well. So for the next 4 years, like I said, literally everything about my life has changed. I've done so much work to learn who I am, to tune into all of the things that I was thinking and feeling and telling myself about myself that felt shitty, and then questioning that stuff. And over these 4 years, my body has healed in ways that I never thought was going to happen to me. Okay, so I realize that I've lost weight, and I'm going to put that out there right now. Yes, I've lost weight. And yes, I've changed my diet. But for every single thing that I've changed, it came from this place of I'm already good enough. I have no intention of changing myself. I just want to honor what is actually right for me right now. And at all of my food stuff from then till now has been, right, so the picking that was happening, I just stopped making a drama about it. I let myself do it until I didn't want to anymore. And that was literally what it was. I said, I'm using this as a coping mechanism because my life is out of control. And there's a lot of things in my life that I don't like and that I don't know how to fix. And so for years, I kept the picking thing, but I just stopped making a drama out of it. I let myself do it because I needed it. And then eventually, like I said, as I've changed the rest of my life, so this is the huge key here, that simply became a coping mechanism I didn't need anymore. And this is the huge key to my healing, is that I stopped making anything that I was doing wrong. I learned that if I was doing something from a terrible feeling place, that I needed compassion for myself. And so even being able to see that, like, how my mom treated me as my whole life was not totally in alignment with the truth. Took me a really long time. I believed her that I was a piece of shit and that I was making the world a worse place and that everything that I did was wrong. I believed her. And that was so deeply ingrained into my sense of who I was that even up until a few months ago, I was still kind of embarrassed to admit that this is where I am physically at this weight and all of this stuff, because I was like, it's probably wrong. I'm probably deluding myself, right? And no one's going to believe me that I don't have an eating disorder anymore, that this isn't all just anorexia 2.0. Because again, if you're on the outside looking in, I would look at me and think that too. But again, it's a completely different life that I'm leading now. So much has changed. I have faced so many things about myself and what I believed about myself. And at the same time, like I said, I've completely changed my family history. So I took a genetic test and got the results. And basically where I was at 14 was on death's door. I have a complete genetic predisposition to colorectal cancer, to Crohn's and colitis, to ovarian and breast cancer, to a weak immune system, high blood pressure, high blood sugar. All the cousins on my grandma's side of the family, my dad's side of the family that I take after, have had cancer, have had their colons removed, are overweight, are infertile. My grandma died of rectal cancer. Where I was at 14 was, the next step for me was cancer. I was not one of these people who had like a normal, healthy body and then I got an eating disorder and fucked it up and now I'm still trying to recover from my eating disorder. No, I was sick. I was sick for my whole life. By the time I was 14, I was gonna die. I was so close to not being okay. That panic that I had in my body until I found the raw foods diet again was true. It was real. I was going to die. Cysts on my ovaries were going to become cancer. What was going on in my colon was Crohn's. It was colitis. I think it was colitis that was going to turn into cancer. My grandma died of cancer in her rectum, and she had the same thing as me. So being where I am now, where I get regular medical checkups every year, I'm not delusional about my health. I am not in perfect health. Okay? No one is saying that. But from where I came from, comparing me to me, this is a miracle. I can travel. My list of foods that I can eat has monumentally increased since 2014, or 2012 when I had the revelation. I have increased the strength of my colon. I have healed my liver. I have healed my kidneys. So much of the inflammation that was in my body, that was the weight that I was carrying around, has gone away. I have muscles that I didn't have before. I have strength that I didn't have before. I can do things now that I never could do before. My mental strength is clearer. This is all a result of the healing path that I've been on. None of where I am, physically speaking, right here, right now, has come from trying to alter my physical size. This was, I needed to figure out how I was going to live a life that was going to work for me. And at the same time, every physical healing that happened as a result of changing something else in my life, of coming to terms with the fact that my life was a total mess, that living in the Western world, working a normal job, eating the way, even just normal food or produce in the West, and just like my whole family lineage of like, don't talk about that and cover that up and don't look at this and don't do that and don't air the dirty laundry and don't be emotional and don't have all of these things. I've had to learn, like, no, this is who I am. This is what I am. There's a reason I live on the other side of the world. There's a reason I look so weird. And it's because I've changed everything about my life. I've literally, from that moment of deciding my body was on my side and changing everything that needed to change in order to just facilitate the healing in my physical self, meant facing all this stuff mentally and emotionally that was holding me in that place of hating myself and in a life that I couldn't live. I was never going to be normal, and I knew that. But what I have discovered since then is that I had to create a life that I was going to be able to live, and I've done it. Okay? And it was hard. There was so much hard work involved and so much following my intuition and just following my feelings and allowing for my healing to be 1% better. So I gave up on fixing my body. I gave up on fixing my life. I gave up on how do I get from this pain, this existential pain that I'm in, that I really want you to understand just how much pain I was in. Physically, mentally, emotionally, I was in so much pain for my entire life. Everything was awful. Everything was awful. Being at home was awful. Being at school was awful. Being at work was awful. All my relationships were awful. My body was awful. Everything was painful. And I've learned since then that there was a reason for all of that pain. There was a reason for every little bit of pain that I was in. And what I know about reality now, everything that I teach you guys on this channel, everything I teach in my mystery school, it all came from learning from reality, okay? In 2014, I had a visualization where I had my anxiety, right? Like I had this anxiety. And I was just like everyone else. Like I was trying to distract myself from it. And so one day I said, okay, I'm not going to do my distracting behaviors. I'm going to sit here and just be with my anxiety. I'm just going to see what happens. And I said, right, like I've felt this awful feeling for my entire life. It's been chasing me my entire life. So I may as well just sit and see what happens if I just don't fight with it. So I sat with my anxiety. And what happened was I had this vision of me running down this dark tunnel, and this man with a bag over his head was chasing me. And I was like, well, that's my anxiety. So I'm running down this tunnel, running down this tunnel, running down this tunnel. This thing is chasing me. And I said, okay, I'm just going to stop and I'm going to turn around, I'm going to look at it. So what I did is I stopped, I turned around, and I looked at it. And then anxiety that was chasing me in my head was like, whoa, like scared of me. And then it took its mask off and I was like, oh, I have a message for you. And I had to chase you because it's my job to get you this message. It's my one job to get you this message. And if you keep running away from me, I have to chase you because I have to get you this message. And it handed me a piece of paper and then disappeared. And I remember having this flash of insight of like, oh, my emotions are messengers. They're not trying to hurt me. They're letting me know that something's out of alignment in my life. And so, like I say, the amount of negative emotions I had about life was like literally everything in my life felt terrible. And I was so used to that. It was like a fish in water. Like I didn't even notice that I had anxiety and depression and all of these things. I just thought that was how you feel. Like I just thought you wake up and have existential dread about your life every single day, all day. And I just thought that was normal. And the same thing with like my body, like to be inflamed and to have an inflamed colon. I didn't know that that was a thing you didn't have to have until it stopped happening to me a couple of years ago, right? So like all of these things. And it's been this slow journey, like I said, of having a revelation, changing something, having a revelation, changing something. Some of those changes were have that tough conversation with your boyfriend, have that tough conversation with your mom, have that tough conversation with your sister. Some of that was that. Some of it was like, you need to quit this job. You need to move from this city. You can't keep living your life this way. Some of it was, you're looking at this wrong. The way you're perceiving this is incorrect, and you need to change that. And so what I'm trying to say is that I no longer chase a heaven of perfection. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to have no negative emotions. I'm not trying to be transcended. And this is what I think is different about me than all the other spiritual teachers. I don't teach transcendence because I don't want it for myself. Because here's what I know about life. The only true thing about life that we know for a fact is that life is always learning, growing, changing, evolving, expanding. That is what makes life life. And I've talked a lot about life generation versus degradation. And what I have learned from my own journey is that the difference between life generation and degradation is 1% better. We are all chasing heaven and transcendence and perfection, and when my body is better, and when my mind is better, and when my anxiety is gone, when all these things about me that are broken are fixed, when I have the right relationship, when I have the right job, when I found my purpose, when I found all this, we're all looking for this after because we think that's what it's going to take for us to be happy. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that is not what it takes to be happy. All you need to be on a life-generating path is to be willing to admit you don't know where you don't know. Your pain is happening. Your suffering is happening. And if you actually understood it, you would have changed the thing that needs to be changed by now. It's not going to be esoteric. It's not mysterious. This whole life, this new age community, so much of it is bullshit. It's so much more practical than that. You're suffering for a reason. Part of it is because of what you believe, because what you believe is how you determine your actions. And it's your actions that are out of alignment with life that are hurting you. Period, end of story. The third thing, you aren't going to know what alignment looks like because you've never had it. Our world is out of alignment. Okay? That's okay. It's totally fine to be out of alignment. We're completely breaking ourselves against reality. That is totally okay. So long as we're willing to say, from where I'm at right now, what can I hear from my pain that can tell me one change to make 1% better? Moving from this fact that there's nothing wrong with me, that I'm in pain. Okay? And if anyone can get over this, as in if I can get over this idea that my pain means I'm wrong and bad and making the world a worse place, so I need to fix myself because my pain is what's wrong with me. My pain is what's causing everyone else pain. My pain is the reason no one likes me, blah, 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 which was my complete belief about myself. that my pain was my fault. My pain in my body was my fault. My pain in my emotions was my fault. I was the cause of everyone else's pain around me. Everything would be fine if I wasn't here pointing it out. Those were my beliefs. If anyone can get to a place where you can realize, no, my pain is not my fault. I inherited my pain. We all inherited our pain. I inherited a sick, weak body. I inherited shitty beliefs about myself. I inherited from my family terrible coping mechanisms that has made everyone in my family sick. I inherited all of that. I took that on. That wasn't my fault. And getting to a place where now I can say that took a long time because I wanted to believe it was my fault. Because I was told for my whole life that it was my fault. I believed because my mom told me that it was my fault. My friends told me it was my fault. Their pain, everyone wanted to scapegoat their pain onto me because I was willing to take it. And I believed them. It was my fault. And now that I can stand here and say it wasn't my fault. No one's pain is my fault. My pain wasn't my fault. But now as an adult, it's my responsibility to change myself to align with reality so that I can feel better. That's what it was. So connecting with that authentic love for myself is what has enabled me to make all the scary changes that I've had to make, including making this video. Like, this totally breaks my family code, right? This, I'm airing the dirty laundry. I'm telling you guys the thing I'm not making, it's not looking good. But it's the truth, and it's what happened, and it's reality. And to deny that this is reality was keeping me sick. So every time I feel terrible, I say, okay, there's a reason for this. I feel terrible for a reason. My emotions, my physicality, my mental state, all of this feeling terrible is happening for a reason. Second thing, I don't know what that reason is. Third thing, relax so that I can find the reason. Because I'm not a victim. I'm not a child anymore. And this has been the biggest thing that has changed my life. I'm not a child. Just because I don't know doesn't mean I can't learn. Reality makes itself incredibly obvious to us to the degree that we can take it on when we just relax. When we let go of heaven. When we let go of the after story. When we let go of perfection or nothing. Right? So that's the other thing. I let go of trying to heal my body and just did what felt like the right thing to do in every single moment. And over the last 4 years, my body has healed, like I said, to degrees that I never thought were possible. I look super weird because I am super weird. I come from a really, really sick, weird background, and this is just what my body looks like right now in the best health I've ever been in. I don't know if it's going to look like this forever. I am also not kidding myself that this is a good, healthy place for me. I have medical results. I get medical checkups every year, and they get better every year. I'm improving, and that's all that matters. Okay? So am I in perfect health? No. Am I in better health than I've ever been in my life? Absolutely. And that's all that matters. I'm heading in the right direction. That's it. I'm heading in the life-generating direction. And so as long as I continue to heal, the fear of degradation is unnecessary. Yes? So life just keeps going. And so what do I know? I'm going to suffer more. I'm going to have pain more. There's going to be things that I go through that I don't understand. I'm going to break myself against reality in 155 million new different ways for the rest of my life. And that's okay, because I'm going to learn from it. And every single time I learn from it, I get stronger. That is the point. Every time I break myself against reality, and rather than saying, okay, I have the solution to my pain, and I'm just going to keep applying the solution that doesn't work, because that's hope, or there's just no solution, I can't do it, I say, okay, I'm in pain for a reason. I don't understand why. I don't know why that caused me pain. What happened? What really went on there? I'm open to learning. And then I start to see things. And then I change into something that I've never been before. So that's the other thing. Every year, every month, every week, you can talk to me and it's like I'm a different person. Because I'm constantly learning from life. Right? And then I've gotten to a place too where not all the learning is coming from suffering anymore. That now I have things that are pleasurable that I keep following that then become more and more and more pleasurable and make me more and more complex and more aware. So it's, again, it's like, how do you know what you know, Allie? Well, I know because I listen to my pain and I listen to my pleasure and I'm willing to learn from life. And I gave up transcendence. I gave up perfection. None of that is real. I only want progress. I want life for how life actually is, which is learning, which is always going to be learning. It's always going to be new stuff. It's always going to be, wow, I didn't know that. And then I change. And then I learn something new. And then I change. And then I learn something new. And then I change. I let go of this idea that being wrong before made me bad. No. Every single step along the way, I've done exactly what I knew to do. I have no regrets about anything that I've done for my entire life. Why? Because it was what I knew at the time. I always did the best I could with what I had. Anorexia was the best I could do. It was, at the time, the very best I could do. And then when I knew better, I did better. But that doesn't mean that that was bad or wrong. It wasn't. And like I say, my anorexia, I don't know. I don't really think that it was like normal anorexia because of all the other things that were going on. But this is the bottom line. No more heaven. No more transcendence. No more perfection, happiness when. Happiness is available right here, right now. By taking our power, the power we have right now, to take one step forward and to take that step. I was always brave enough to take the step, to just do the thing that I had never done before, right? Try the new diet that I had never done before, that was being told to me from the inside, and just see what happens. And if it went shitty, then learn. If it went good, learn. And also just like giving up this fear of failure, giving up this fear of like, what if it goes bad? So what? If it goes bad, learn. You can change. You're not a tree. Move. This is what it was. Okay? Over and over and over again. Being willing to just try. Being willing to do stuff and see how it goes. And if it goes bad, try something else. And again, I don't believe in bad. I don't believe in wrong. I don't believe in pain that shouldn't be happening. Everything should be happening. Everything should be happening in the sense that everything is an effect of a cause. So even if that cause was like your entire family lineage that you don't know anything about and it's going to be all this stuff you have to change in order to come into alignment, that's fine. You can learn that one thing at a time. But first you have to admit, if I'm in pain for a reason. If I'm in pain, it's because I'm opposing reality. I've been taught to oppose reality. I don't have any examples of anyone who's in alignment with reality, and I can't look to that for hope. I'm going to have to figure it out myself. And you can. One step at a time. So that's my story. I have been physically sick my entire life, and I'm in the best health now that I've ever been. And I just got here through stopping trying to fix myself and deciding that I was going to learn from reality, right? So stopping trying to fix myself isn't synonymous with give up. It was learn. Reality's on my side. My body's on my side. My emotions are on my side. Everything is rooting for me. Pain is a good thing because it shows me where I'm hurting myself, where I am opposing life and degrading myself with that. So every single time something is painful, I say, okay, what am I not seeing here? And it's just 1% better. And that's where that relief came from. When I finally got to a place where it was just the right thing, the 1% better, right? I don't eat now like how I used to eat 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. Things change, right? There is no perfect diet. It's all just evolution. My body changes, and then I need new things, and then I don't need certain things, and that's how that's happening. But the only way that I've been able to make this progress is I let go of a perfect diet, and I'm just willing to do whatever needs to be done in this phase. And then when the new phase comes, I know, because I don't want those foods anymore, and I do want these new foods, and I always trust it. And it's healed me over every time. Every time. I follow my craving every time. I follow my pleasure every time. And sometimes, again, my pleasure leads me to hard things. But that's because I needed to learn. So I'm not opposed to suffering. I'm not opposed to pain. I don't want to transcend. I want to live life, which is constant evolution, constantly growing. So that is where I'm coming from. There is no after. It's always going to change. And this is the thing. Truth is solid, but it applies itself to every relative situation. So there are guiding principles of reality that change themselves based on how we are right now. And that's how I live my life. I'm not looking for the answer. I'm just looking for the next answer. And every single time I do that, I get more intelligent, more capable. I see things how I haven't seen them before. My life changes. It gets better. I see an opportunity to do something that I never saw before. And that is why I thought I was great 6 years ago. And I would never go back to where I was 6 years ago now. Because here is so much better. But not because there was something wrong with that. I'm just way more aligned now. But the way that I got way more aligned now was just one step at a time. No more looking for the end goal. There is no end goal. I have no end goal. Okay? I have no goals. I just want to keep learning from my pain and from my pleasure, from my emotions and my body. Everything is on my side. And that is how I got here. And so that's it. I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. And I never will. And I never will be. And I don't want to be. So your pain is not your fault. My pain was not my fault. We're all born into a world that's out of alignment. We're all given things that are messed up. And as adults, we have to realize we have the power to clean them up. And as we do that, we're going to feel better. But we have to let go of needing to feel perfect right now. We have to let go of someone telling us the answer. We have to let go of anyone knowing outside of us. That's not what it is. We can learn principles and truths from each other. But how they apply to you, only you can figure that out. And the way you figure it out is by having compassion for yourself. Your pain is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. If you want a better life, your pain is your responsibility. Don't make it an enemy. It's there to help you. Make everything there right. Everything is right. Assume it's right. What do you have to learn? What is the next step? If it's all overwhelming, that's okay. You don't have to do it all right now. Just one step. Okay? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. Like, share, subscribe. I hope you enjoyed my story. I hope it helped you feel something. Your pain is not your fault. Your suffering is not your fault. You have no reason to feel ashamed. Everything that you've ever done to try and help yourself has been right. It's the best you've known to do. If you're at a point where you're tired of doing what you're doing, let go of the fact that you know what you know. Let go of the fact that you're going to find the answer, as in hold on to the fact that you can find the answer. You don't know what it is, but if you just relax, the next thing, it might be the thing you don't want to do, but it will become obvious. Just take that next step. Let go of perfection. Progress is the thing. Okay? And I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.